Hi guys, before we get to the installation, you need to get rid of those pliers because you don't use them for heat shrink connectors. You want to make sure that your tool has a die designed for insulated connectors. It doesn't matter if it's standard or one of these ratcheting tools. Your heating device, it can either be a hot air gun or a butane torch. Now let's get to the installation. To install a crimp and solder butt connector, make sure you follow the package's instructions for the proper wire strip lengths. Insert the first wire into the barrel. The wire should butt up against the terminal's wire stop. Using the red crimp nest of my crimping tool, I'll want to align the tool halfway between the solder sleeve in the middle and the end of the crimp barrel. I'm going to repeat these same instructions on the other side. First, I'll insert my wire. Using the tool's red insulated nest, I again align my tool between the edge of the solder sleeve and the other end of the barrel and crimp. When recovering the tubing, I'll start by focusing the heat at the middle of the connector and move the heat to one end. I'm trying to ensure that any air under the tubing is forced out. I'll repeat on the other side. Again, I want to make sure that the end of the tubing is fully recovered down to the wire's insulation. Next, I'll move the heat to the middle of the connector where the solder sleeve is. Keep heating until you see the solder sleeve become liquidous. Most of the solder will flow into the terminal's window. You can now remove the heat and let it cool for a few minutes. Now you have a termination that will last as long as the wire. When installing a crimp and solder ring, spade, or quick disconnect, make sure that you follow the package's instructions for the proper wire strip length. It is important that your wire is long enough so that you can see the ends of the wire in the terminal's 45-degree viewing window. Insert the 20-gauge wire into the open end of the ring terminal. Using the red crimp nest of your crimping tool, align the tool with the red band of the terminal and crimp the connector's barrel. When recovering the tubing, start by focusing the heat at the middle of the connector and heat the unrecovered tubing back towards your wire's insulation. You'll want to make sure any air under the tubing is forced out at the end of the tubing as it recovers. Move the heat back to the middle of the connector where the solder sleeve is. If possible, rotate the connector to evenly distribute the heat. Wait for the solder sleeve to become liquidous. You can now remove it from heat and let it cool for a few minutes. It is okay if some of the solder escapes from the top of the terminal. Simply tap it away and reseal the neck of the tubing while the tubing is still warm.